interrupt this normally scheduled, silly, idiotic podcast to bring you something that's a little bit unique and a little bit out of the ordinary. It is just a little bit of a report that's more along the lines of something that's in line with something that you would see on the Finance Channel, somewhere on television, perhaps. But it's also a little bit of a ding-duck analysis, which has to do with something that corresponds to Elon Musk, because today was a little bit of a conceptualization relating to what he unveiled in terms of his recent unveiling regarding Tesla, and what's been going on somewhat, not really exactly behind closed doors, but I just haven't been exactly caught up with reading the financials necessarily with his companies necessarily, and it's just a little bit peculiar because he's talking about a wide range of different items that correspond to him being somewhat like the world president, if you will. It's sort of like spiritual finance has to do with different analysis of different aspects, of different focuses, of different items around the whole globe, the whole world, all of the countries that are sort of combined to be able to develop larger interests or inferences or conjectures or depictions of certain items that correspond to aspects of investing, which is also called spiritual finance, because ultimately it's not necessarily just about money. It is about the things that sort of relate to value, after all, that like money is a representation of, if you will. And in this instance, Elon Musk seems like he's sort of in line to be somewhat of what conceptually could be conceptualized as the world president. He is sort of like in the position to be like somewhat of like a world president without having that title exactly necessarily. But it's something along those lines, because in essence he was helping the president of the United States previously, obviously. But nonetheless, in his recent unveiling, he in essence was able to uncover just the things that he's a little bit focused on, which also correspond to, but not necessarily are limited to, humanoid robots, which are able to ultimately be able to scale past, like conceptually, more so than the items that relate to the amount of humans that are necessarily on Earth. And he's already got more than a couple billion cars that are on the road as of now, supposedly actively functioning as existing sort of robots that are in essence computers, and at the same time robots, and at the same time can correspond to a greater, fundamentally connectified grid that corresponds to artificial intelligence, which he's building, which he's also leveraging multiple avenues which correspond to the avenues which relate to the globe, all of the world, all of humanity, every single person being somewhat involved and aligned in essence, also corresponding to the essence, and the fact that Tesla is a stock, and in essence in relation to something which I've corresponded to in the past a little bit at a time in terms of what spiritual finance relates to, in terms of the essence and the idea that corresponds to the essence that every single person has somewhat of an intrinsic value. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to be able to elevate that value, after all, in a fundamental sense. So in essence, what we're trying to conceptualize, though, is the deep conceptualization of how depth relates to the nature of the price-value action, necessarily alignment with what and where Elon Musk is at today, in essence, because he's just so much further than everything and everyone else beyond the nature of what humanity is in essence, and that what somewhat corresponds to what in essence spiritual finance relates to, after all, I reckon, because it's just about the depths of how far you can go in the universe and how deep you can go in the universe and how you can connect with the universe and the depths of humanity to be able to try to connect literally, physically, actually with the essences of space, with the artifacts of time, space, mass, the essences of physics, to be able to try to trip wires and loops of holes of fabrics of galaxies and of existence, to be able to try to fall through different aspects of the fabrics of reality, to be able to fall through different aspects of value holes and value creation, to develop value, leveraging the essences of spiritual finance, leveraging the essences of things that are limitless, leveraging the essences of mindsets which correspond to infinity, after all. And that is what Elon Musk, I believe personally, firsthand is doing, and that is the direction of where he's taking the globe, the world, as he seems to be like in line to be like the world president, seemingly, so to speak, because he's not necessarily connected at all necessarily to one specific country, and he's already working with China. He's working with the U.S., and in essence, he's trying to be able to try to develop unifying processes, which ultimately correspond to space, ultimately corresponds to being in space and developing not only quantum computing processes and quantum in the future, being able to leverage quantum systems, but being able to leverage an army or like a literally significant development and growth of also humanoid robots, which are what the recent development and expression of was what the recent development expression was about at the most recent releasing, which is like Berkshire Hathaway's every year sort of coming together of different investors and shareholders coming together to be able to praise and get a sense of what is new and what's happening and what is latest and greatest at Tesla, for example, the company, to be able to try to leverage what's coming in the future necessarily, and with everything that's going on in the world with artificial intelligence as an energy, artificial intelligence as an energy, and then leveraging the future forward mindset of where we're all going with this and how things are flowing and how Elon has been positioned and how he's also at the center not only of one of the most significant AI companies, OpenAI, which he was fundamentally a part of that development and beginning of that, but he also has his own significant thing that corresponds to X/Twitter/ the last Twitter that is now X, that is his own artificial intelligence company, and he's moving in the direction of quantum mechanics and quantum computing when it becomes available, and has the capability to firsthand be able to put quantum computing and quantum mechanics and an army of robots to be able to service and maintain and develop and conceptually continue to develop, not only with cars, but actual humanoid robots, not only in the medicine field, but also in the ability to be able to leverage these humanoid robots to be able to build items and continue to be able to actually build societies on like different places like Mars and different places like in space, to be able to develop different developments that actually are able to be able to facilitate the zero ice, -0, 200 degrees Celsius, zero, negative, absolute zero-ness that is necessitated for quantum computing to be able to exist in the most fundamental functional sense that is available necessarily. So he is on all angles sort of got things aligned a little bit all around the world. In terms of not necessarily, this is something a little bit unique to this podcast, because this is kind of like a technical analysis to hold Tesla stock, to be able to actually look at the essence and the nature of Tesla stock, actually looking at this person who does happen to be a CEO, does happen to be able to be leveraging all of these technologies and all of these essences that are positioned in a significant sense to be like the world president, which in a corresponding like energy fashion sense corresponds to like the greatest value in the world, and being like of the greatest value in the world. If he's able to uphold himself and just be able to continue to exist for the most part, so that nobody hopefully feels too negatively or derogatorily about him, so that hopefully he's able to continue to persist, to be able to lead humanity after all. That is the single fundamental aspect that is so unique and interesting and fundamentally unique, fundamentally in the fundamentals of this stock, of trying to predict the conceptual, hopefully continual, perpetual future value of this stock, of Tesla stock, for example. And at the same time, he's leveraging the sun. He's leveraging the sun to be able to try to have the whole world be powered by the sun, in essence, from the sound of it, at the same time, to be able to leverage that as the single most significant power that is on Earth, way more powerful than nuclear power, for example, to be able to try to continue to leverage that as a fundamental power, to be able to have natural energy, to be able to continue to be able to spread that. And he's leveraging batteries and developing batteries to be able to position that, to be able to generate the ability for all humanity to be able to function continually, consecutively, and functionally. Not only that, but he's also being able to also, there, it just kind of popped up in one of the parts of a stock, they're able to transition a mind into robots, for example. You could transition a mind, maybe at some time, into robots, possibly, maybe. And so that also means like changing the nature of being able to change the fundamental nature of what humans can be, like in the show Transformers, or like in the Ninja Turtles movie, where that little brain was inside of a different body, in essence, in the Ninja Turtles mean boss, the boss who everybody wanted to defeat. It's possible, conceivably, that little device could be a little device that could leverage what different humans are taking the shape of, necessarily, in terms of how he expressed it, somewhat in terms of one of the little things that he just kind of mentioned as a detail in terms of connecting consciousness with Neuralink, which is one of his companies, maybe, in the possible sense, in a possibility sense, and just one of the things that he kind of threw out there, in essence, in other words. So it's just kind of like a peculiar corresponding correlation to every single thing that he's got sort of like nailed down to a certain extent, to where he's actually aligned with every single element of conceptual, functional, conceivable alignment of a company, of a business, of a person sense, corresponding to politics at the same time, to be able to contextually and conceptually be aligned with the United States in the functionality of the government, directly, conceptually. And he's developed a process where, in essence, he was able to also try to straighten and right some wrongs that were done within the government in the past, so to speak, in terms of the finance aspect, and trying to develop a positive green energy where certain aspects were not aligned in the past, to where ultimately now, in the future, with his company, with Tesla stock. So this is kind of a call for Tesla stock to be hopefully profitable more so in the future, as like just identifying this and calling it out sort of in the meantime, as like all these fundamental conceptual alignments coming from all angles, especially in the medical, leveraging, being able to have precision in terms of robots, being able to develop processes that in essence correspond to efficiency and fundamental effectiveness in terms of more precision than humans could possibly hope to have, in terms of like using hands to make little acts occur in a functional sense, and then also being able to like develop ways to make actually poverty and negativity in this respect go away around the whole world, because there's so many humanoid robots. Like there's already a couple billion cars of Tesla cars on the road now, and those are robots, but at the same time, when they're human robots and they have the ability to correspond to every single human on Earth, that they have the ability to get them fed, they have the ability to cause protection, they have the ability to also reduce crime at the same time. So it's literally a conceptual, full circle, 360 conceptual process of how to be able to functionally continue to conceptually grow the company. And he's also already trying to predict how the future value functionality valuation of the future of the value of the stock is going to be more so taking over, obviously, in surpassing and continuing to surpass the nature and the essence of what Berkshire Hathaway has done in the past, in essence, in that's a past company anyways, in that sense, but nonetheless, with that in mind, and that corresponding conceptual elements also relating to his pay package, which he recently received, which is like $1 trillion pay package in stock, if he's able to reach certain thresholds, which ultimately he's trying to supersede elements with that are relating to the certain thresholds which he's trying to reach, and a certain minimum valuation which he's trying to correspond to reach, to be able to also get shareholders more money, and also be able to continue to increase the value of humanity, and be able to put out the essence of developing more processes that align with vertical integration, more so vertical integration. He's developing from the ground up grassroots processes that also develop chip making computer chips, for example, and also aligning with the ability and potential of something that I've called forward selling in the past. It's something I've called forward selling in the past, which corresponds to being able to make by selling first. He sells first, in essence, and then has the ability and the capability to be able to vet certain people and develop teams, and developing teams which makes the water grow, in essence. He's got the ability to make the water grow ahead of the items that need to actually happen. So the water is splashing, it's rapids, it's waterfalls of water and money, and monetary energy that's flowing in a certain direction, and he's building behind that water. He's building behind the water. He gets the money to flow, he gets the monetary energy to flow, and he's building behind the water. The rapids are flowing, they're down the street, they're 16 miles away in terms of water flowing. That's representative of money and monetary energy. That's forward selling. He's forward selling, and all that money and monetary energy and water energy. He's liquid in different industries like water, and he's flowing, and he's got the money, and the money is flowing, and it's also stock, and he's leveraging assets, and he's leveraging all kinds of different assets in terms of forward selling, so that this water, this monetary energy is flowing in all different directions like water, and he's building behind the water, and every time he builds, it's continuing to develop new momentum of water spurting forward, and this is the essence, in a different sense, of spiritual finance at the same time, except he has the ability to leverage and actually do physical actions to be able to make these actions happen in real life, because he's already got a lot of money and water momentum, because he's developed significant momentum in the base of his company to begin with, because he's just a lot more in line with physics and engineering and understanding the ability to be able to connect with other engineers and be able to actually facilitate engineering, to be able to accomplish those engineering feats, to be able to get them to the marketplace in an efficient, packaged, fundamentally functional processes, and is super efficient technology as the product, as the core, to begin with, be even before the marketing, in essence. So that, in essence, corresponds to definitely working alongside of his favor to be like a chief engineer for SpaceX, for example, at the same time, and a chief engineer for X and XAI and all these companies that correspond to definitely his smarts being fundamentally aligned to where it's just a lot more than marketing in terms of his development, conceptual alignment with the ability to develop these products that especially can be amplified significantly with quantum computing, like we've talked about a couple days ago, 10 septillion years into the future of what quantum computing conceivably is capable of, necessarily in terms of acceleration of the processes and the speed with the already existing layout of existing tools that he's got in place as of now. So who knows where future can go in terms of the future of humanity, in terms of all people just taking the shape of different weird shapes or different robots or whatever it is, different alignments of different machines, and breathing the spirit of people and humanity into these different machines, which is what spiritual finance is trying to somewhat be aligned with, as well as trying to preserve and conserve the essence of humanity and the spirit and the essence of the intrinsic value of that which is within humanity, and the same thing within animals at the same time, because just like preserving the life of humans inside of robots, for example, that it's also taking the essence of trying to have that same spirit be preserved of animals, to be able to preserve animals, to be able to have animals live on within robots, and leveraging items such as Neuralink, so that ultimately our humanity just becomes fluidity. And like I was talking about a couple days ago, when you get super silent, that you're connecting to eternity. And this is almost like turning into eternity at the same time by leveraging high frequency of all these technologies, leveraging high frequency at all the same time, leveraging and leading into and leaking into every single human being on the planet, and hopefully every single animal on the planet at the same time. So every single human being and every single animal on the planet gets the ability to be able to leverage this high-tech technology, so that ultimately we are all actually being able to become one, and we're able to leak into each other as becoming one frequency, one energy, one continuous benefit of continuous conceptual unifying processes of flowing energy circulating in a cyclical centering sense, so that ultimately this can develop the global philanthropy energy grid. And that just means all of our oneness is the highest frequency that we can possibly reach, including a connection between animals and humanity, and we're able to eliminate all the negative aspects of the shortcomings of society at the current day. And that is where the world president essence of the necessity of a world president comes into play, in essence. And that's why the value goes to, and the person who gets the title of the world president, in essence, goes to the person who can create the highest value. And right now there's not even really anybody even kind of close, in a little bit of a close second place at the current time. So hopefully this, as a world presidency process, can lead to just an inevitable sense of technology being able to leverage the ability for everybody to be able to have a functional and most happy life that is possibly possible, by leveraging the essence of the core of the human energy that is within all humans, to be able to leverage what is also known, I've talked about it at least in the past, as the name, as the global philanthropy energy grid. The global philanthropy energy grid, which stems from the positive frequency from all people's hearts as asset energy, which corresponds to the nature of nature energy, the nature of love energy, which is asset energy, the nature of nature energy, which is positive energy, because that's what causes growth. That's what nature is, it's growth, more or less. And that's what Elon Musk is trying to do, is just fundamentally become like water and become like acid energy, so he flows into different industries, and he gets super meditative, and he just becomes all these energies that corresponds to his chief engineering mindset brain, to be able to actually develop and facilitate products. And we're hopefully going in a quantum acceleration process to be able to actually leverage these like humanoid robots as little workers. So in essence, the humans get to benefit from the essence of this energy being repurposed into this engineering processes. And that therefore is how we're trying to conclude that we have hopefully something of like value in this department, in this sense, in this stock of Tesla stock, conceivably in the future, if this all stays in line with the direction that he's incentivized to go in, by getting $1 trillion incentivization package, in essence, and to be able to try to stimulate not just the country of the US, but hopefully the whole global economy, and hopefully every single human in the whole entire world, by having humanoid robots to be able to be assistive, to be friends, to be developing all angles of vertical integration in all and any necessary industries that he needs to be able to innovate, to be able to develop gigafactories, develop terafactories, whichever kind of factories is necessary to be able to develop computer chips, for example, for growing demand and growing necessity to grow a growing world as time grows on, I suppose you could say. And in the meantime, yeah, that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a little bit heavy, but it's really all dedicated to Tesla in this episode, if you will. And we're just trying to be able to leverage the energy that we have to be able to try to optimize it into the global philanthropy energy grid, so that we can try to continue to optimize all of this energy in the best fashion possible. And it's just super interesting that this person, Elon, even came about necessarily, because all these technologies seem to correspond and coincide directly with this single person somehow, as like somewhat of a just peculiar center place of optimization of attention and such things, to where really it's just kind of like, hopefully, Apple in the early 2000s, in terms of someone to focus on and something to focus on, in terms of something that is a powerhouse that hopefully is also worth investing in as a stock. Yeah. That's all for now, I suppose. Ding Tech, bye, peace, bye, thanks, bye. Ding Tech, change for game studios. Ding Tech, change for games, bye, peace, bye.